You're listening to the NABS Now podcast, brought to you by the National Association of Blind Students, a proud division of the National Federation of the Blind.
The music you're just hearing right now is from my high school marching band from 2018 show. This is a time of the year where competitive college and high school marching bands go head to head against one another, showcasing their unique performances in the world of marching arts. It is amazing, it is sophisticated, and it sounds cool. But what type of adaptations are available? Curious as to how a blind performer could possibly join in a competitive marching corps? That is the hot topic for today's episode, as you'll get to hear from two blind marchers who have performed with DCI bands and the significance of marching band that has impacted their lives. So joining me in the Snaps Now studio are two incredible marchers sharing their experiences and get to know them a little bit on this episode today. So my opening question to both of you, besides your name and your affiliation with your past or current marching band experiences, your home instrument, and then your favorite memory. So Dustin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Dustin Cather. I used to serve on the National Association of Blind Students board. I served as treasurer from, I believe, 2018 to 2020, around there. And I marched Drum Corps International from the years 2007, and I aged out in 2012. I actually had the opportunity to march 3 different corps. 2 of them don't exist anymore. They unfortunately folded. But I in the front ensemble in a corps called Capital Sound. I marched 3 years playing baritone at Pioneer Drum and Bugle Corps out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And then I finished out my last 2 years marching Colts out of Dubuque, Iowa, playing euphonium in 2011 and 2012. So I'm kind of dating myself here because you age out at 21. My home instrument is, or was, I should say, the euphonium, but I do have percussion chops as well, mostly on pitch percussion like marimba and vibraphone and all that. I guess my favorite drum corps / band memory is just getting the chance to meet folks from all over the world and going on tour, getting into some crazy circumstances while you're on the road and putting in all that rehearsal time to put on a good show.
Yeah, absolutely. I love just how diverse your instrumentation is. Instruments all over the place, but mid to low brass, that always gets me. It's so great. What about you, Emily? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, guys. I'm Emily Kiehl. I'm the president of the Ohio Association of Blind Students.
Let's go, OABs.
Yeah, let's go. I just marched 1 year of drum corps. I marched with the Phantom Regiment in 2021. It was incredible. I'm also a 5th-year member at the University of Cincinnati in the marching band. And also I marched in an Inertia Winds, which is also no longer a thing, but it's a WGI indoor winds group. And so that was also super fun. So yeah, I don't have near as much drum corps experience as Dustin, but I've also played a bunch of different instruments. I guess my main instrument is tuba, although I think my favorite is euphonium. Yeah, I think so. And my favorite memories are, honestly, sometimes hearing the songs after we played them in a group, like on the radio or something, and then everybody just going crazy because a song is more special when you've played it, I feel like. So it's really fun to make those memories with those people and like that kind of.
Wow, I love it. That always gets me too. Both y'all are down in low brass, and I'm over here. I marched flute, so like I feel a little bit distant from low brass from time to time. But good stuff. Good stuff all around. So, for context for listeners, I was also in marching band, not nearly as experienced as these two, but we're definitely a great episode here coming for both all of you here. So, I received a question and it got me thinking. This is really pertaining to both of your involvements with DCI. How would you describe what DCI is? What is Drum Corps International? Like, what makes it so different? Perhaps a college or high school marching band that more listeners might be familiar. And what type of performers really get into these?
I've had to explain it to so many people because drum corps was such a big part of my life, and so many people don't know about it. It's incredible. I just explained it as professional marching band, the NFL of march. So
Highly competitive.
Yeah, and the difference between high school band and college band and stuff like that is just definitely the amount of time that you have to put in. You don't have to audition for in high school band as much. Just the level is a lot more. Not necessarily like hardness, I guess. Really just the amount of time you have to put in and get to meet people all over the world. So location is a big thing.
Yeah, for sure. Would you say that like a time commitment, like how long would you say that is for to put together a show?
Like to put together a whole show. I mean, I remember the audition process taking so long because I did it in 2021. So I did all these virtual auditions and so all the time that I spent like practicing and doing auditions and stuff like that was a ton. And then you move in and then it's every day. You're out on the field for, I don't know, 16 hours a day for 7 days a week for 3 months.
Wow.
So however much that is.
What about you, Dustin? What's your take on this question? If I were to approach you or someone were to approach you with a question, what is exactly Drum Corps International and how would you categorize or describe yourself as one of that exceptional performers who got a chance to march with DCI affiliate?
So I would say like DCI or Drum Corps is, if I had to, I guess, sum it up, it's a conglomerate of the most crazy, dedicated individuals working together on one common goal, and that is to go out there and entertain an audience, put on a good show, make all the band kids scream in the stands, and like all our fans. And it's just, I don't know, it's really hard to explain. And I'm 10 years out of drum corps now. I'm 31 right now and I aged out when I was 21. And, it's still difficult to explain, what I did for 6 summers of my life. And even coming back when, I was in high school, when I started marching drum corps and going back to band camp and explaining, what I did this summer. But, the question that you get usually on your first day of school, it's still difficult to answer. I'm 10 years removed from the activity, but if I would say it's just a group of dedicated musicians who want to push themselves, want to have like the education level, basically a master class all summer, and just have a good time. So it's just, I don't know, it's really hard to explain.
Do you think it's as equally as challenging as it is rewarding at the end? I know you're not getting like a paper degree, like you're going through college or even high school diploma.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah. Would you say that when you perform for that final time, it's like 3-4 months of being out on the field for 16 hours every single day? It's like rewarding.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, just, once you hit the final note and you're stepping off that field, whether you had a good show personally or you had a bad show personally, you learn from every single opportunity you have to perform that specific performance, no matter what year.
I love that answer a lot. I mean, I've certainly been in an experience where our band worked really hard with the amount of time that we had. And then you are at Bands of America, where we're one of the larger shows before the season comes to a close. And you're like, well, that wasn't exactly the greatest show. There's a lot of variables, I feel like, too, with marching band. Would y'all say?
Yeah, for variables, oh my goodness, there's things moving all the time. That's the hardest part, trying to keep track of it.
I know the running joke in my band was always like, I mean, is marching band even a sport? I personally think it is a form of
Oh my
sport. You have
goodness.
hand-eye coordination, you have fine muscle movements, fine motor skills on top of playing an instrument and a physical movement. There's a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a note on that. I think it was in 2006, and you can find this on YouTube. I forgot what university did it, but they worked with the Blue Devils, and they hooked up like a bunch of like monitors and like oxygen stuff, like
Wow.
to monitor oxygen output to like some tenor drummer. And I can't forget the results specifically, but I remember them saying something along the lines of they're putting as much effort in a 12-minute DCI show as like a world-class marathon runner would put in an entire race.
No, I would
Yeah, I've
agree.
seen that video too. And they do it on a tenor drum player and not on like a wind player or anything. So like imagine how much air tubas have to be putting through their instruments.
Oh yeah, tuba is a large instrument, and you have to pump in a lot of air. And then my next kind of topic on the table was pertaining to adaptation on the field. Obviously, with different degree of blindness, I'd be curious as to. So, and for context, I during the halftime show, I was a front ensemble. I was primarily a keyboard or synthesizer role, kind of adding in that really cool sound effect. Sometimes I would be in charge of sound, but I know I was primarily keyboard. And then my senior year, before my time in marching band came to a close, I was a lead soloist. I got to open the show and close the show. So I'd be curious to hear both of your experiences as far as being on the field and some of the techniques that have worked really well for adapting this marching experience.
Yeah, I got excited about this one. The the hardest thing that I've had to figure out how to do is read music. And I am one that it's so hard to get braille music that even if I was able to figure it out somehow, braille music is just so confusing in my head. Plus, is inaccessible. I've tried a couple of other things. I have a sensational blackboard, and I've even tried like tracing stuff out on the audio recordings, of course. And that seems to work the best. But for a drum corps, I printed out on poster paper. I don't remember. It's poster size paper. And so I folded those up and I just carried them around with me and then unfolded them when I need to look at something. So that's what worked for reading music. On the field was a little different too.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your field experience?
Yeah, the field was really difficult. I have like total night blind and then
Right.
just no detail. So, but what I could see were when people were around me. And so I was able to, like, especially to the left side, I have some vision, like a low degree of vision, but in my left eye that I can tell shapes and stuff. Super helpful because I was able to guide to one person for each set. So I just had to square myself off with them. So instead of necessarily learning a point on the field in relation to something that's far, I just had to know who was in front of me to what degree and like how to center off of them when I was moving there. So it's a little bit more like finding yourself into a moving puzzle, but also a lot of just doing my drill by myself.
Wow, drills on your own. That's huge kudos to you for doing that.
Got
That's
to do what you got to do in drum
right. You gotta
corps.
do what you gotta do. What about you, Dustin? Would you like to take a stab at?
So I actually started losing my vision. I didn't realize I was really losing my vision until my last 2 years of drum corps. So in like audition season and for the 2011 season, I noticed my vision starting to decline. Couldn't really read like normal print music anymore. So I would ask. It would be just as simple as having a conversation with like the captain and like, hey, is there any way that we can, blow up the music just a little bit? And they're like, oh yeah, no problem, we can do this for you. And they were perfectly fine with that. And in terms of like drill wise, I still had some usable vision. So I got by, and I wasn't part of the NFB or anything. So I really didn't know how to advocate for myself. But I would ask like my section leader, can you help read the dots so I can write these down in my dot book, like all nice and bright or something like that when they give you your drill sheets and, when you're the drill and everything. Towards my age out year, I started losing more vision. So brass captain head and brass staff, really knew what was going on. And the season past, the visual aspect wasn't, in terms of drill, wasn't that big of a problem. But second year in the Colts, I had to have a conversation with the visual captain head. His name was Matt, and he's a really cool guy. And he was just like, and I was like, hey, something's wrong with my eyes. I don't really know what it is quite yet. I don't really know what's going on. I can still sort of see, but it's not that great. And this was like again, audition season. And we need to have that conversation where you need to cut me. Like, you can't. He was just like, no, don't. That's stupid. Are you going to kill anybody? And I was like, no. I was like, all right, you'll be fine. We'll work with you. And they did. And they were always open to me asking questions, like, if I needed confirmation on a drill move or in terms of, how far am I away in front of the guy or gal. The techs would be more than happy to accommodate. The captain head was great. I turned out to be, I was a really good marcher and player by like my last 2 years. So as long as you weren't the worst person in the drum corps and you weren't getting called out by the box, I was like fine with it. So, and I only got called out towards my like first or last and second year. When I first started marching in drum corps, I would get called out a lot because I was brand new to the instrument of baritone. Never marched. I transitioned from front ensemble to playing the baritone. I was what they call a tick box. So, I was, still learning. So by the time, I got to the more competitive corps, I was actually pretty decent and never really got called out. And it was fine. Like I just adjusted. I paid attention a lot and, just worked out. The following year, that's when I finally we figured out what was going on with my eyesight after I aged out. It all worked out.
I'm glad to hear. No, good
yeah,
for
I think it just comes down to like a conversation, just being upfront and honest with. If you're not comfortable being on the field, that's perfectly fine. But if you really want to be out there on the field, just like Emily did, and the staff in these corps will find a way to make it work.
And I think that comes a lot from passion too, right? Because I know for me, I was losing vision at the age of 14 through 17. About 3 years of transition. I had to make a lot of adjustments in my life very quickly. But I know for me, marching band music in general was one of my greatest passion, and it still is to this day. I don't march in any capacity because there's no marching band in my college, or else I would. I know that was something that was worth advocating for, and that was something that I've helped to push beyond the limits of what my loss of my vision or my blindness have brought upon us. Continue to drive for that passion and then advocate because you love or have passion for music and for marching art. So that was a little bit of kind of my approach to accommodating marching band. And I know, Emily, you're going to be very jealous of this, but having that perfect pitch too has helped immensely.
Oh my goodness.
It is so amazing.
I love to like follow up on what Dustin said, because I think that's really interesting that all of your caption heads and techs were super supportive. I don't know, because I had like sort of an opposite experience. I feel like they were harder on me because I needed to be more perfect. I just needed to know my stuff better, because like if something else got off wrong, I need to know exactly where I'm going to be. I don't know. I thought it was also super helpful. Just maybe the way that we learn is different. But yeah, I had to fight to get into the corps. I did all my video auditions and stuff, and then I was given like the first contract, and then I emailed them and said, hey, I can't see. And they said, oh, we'll take that back. And then they figured it out. Yeah, but it really comes down to like advocating for yourself. So totally like having those honest conversations, but also being the one to be like, no, I need to be out on that field. I was the tick though. You can ask anybody I marched with. I was the tick. I got called out from the box, I think. Oh man, a good day was when I only got called out from the box once.
Oops.
Oops.
Okay.
Oh man, it was so good.
That's a big oops.
Nah.
That's okay. You got through. This topic of discussion is very interesting. So I know typically marching arts is known for not being very diverse inaccessible by nature. And I know we take our own form of adaptation, whether that is listening to a recording of our parts or using an enlarged dot book or poster paper folded in half. I know it takes many forms of that. Do you guys see that, if you will, an accessibility culture around marching arts improving in general for other prospective marchers to have a better experience? Or do you think it's going to be a hard change due to the nature of the rooted tradition concerning really competitive marching band or even just high school or college marching band in general?
I love this question because you mentioned like traditional
Right.
rooted band, like traditional drum corps and marching bands. I mean, they were all men for a while, and then now like women are allowed, and I'm sure it's the same with they were predominantly white, I'm sure, and obviously now we try to make it as inclusive as possible, and I'm sure disability is going to be like the next part of it. And obviously, it already has been. The best you can do is be out on the field, and like anybody with diverse identities, go be out on the marching band field. Like that's your place. It's everybody's place. So I think that it's working to be accessible, but we need to be more visible. But
That's a really good point. I think it's just continuing to strive and, like we're doing on this podcast, motivate future band lovers to really look into auditioning for DCI even of their choice.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Like, in terms of DCI, I mean, I see it probably more, or at least present right now, in like the high school and marching band or high school and college marching bands. In terms of DCI, I think I've known of 5 people who were blind or low vision, and this is just who I know, who's marched DCI, and 2 of them are us on this call. And so it's either 4 or 5. I know there was one, this was back in 2005, 2006. There was a tenor drummer. I think it was either for the Blue Stars or for the Blue Devils. Oh yeah, Blue Devils. And then there was another drummer for the Blue Stars, like in 2007, 08, 09, around that area. And there was also a euphonium player who was blind or low vision in the Blue Stars in 2009. I know him. His name is Al. But yeah, I think that'll be an interesting. I don't know if like the board of directors of DCI have ever considered this. I know in recent years there's been a lot of talks in terms of like pushing diversity initiatives, and as well as making sure sexual assault and issues pertaining to that are appropriately addressed in the activity. Big pushes. If you look on like DCI message boards and on DCI.org. There's a lot of initiatives around diversity and inclusion going on. So there's been a big diversity and inclusion effort in the activity over the past couple of years, for certain, that I'm aware of. But has the conversation of disability been in that? I'm not sure. In terms of DCI, I mean, I'm not sure. It's on the individual to show the core that they may audition for, that they want it and that they belong there. I'm sure if there's any prospective auditioners in seasons of the future, whether that be this upcoming season or a couple seasons from now, if you're thinking about auditioning, you're going to have to really push yourself to and advocate for yourself to get yourself in that core that you want to be, putting in all that practice time and showing the staff who make those decisions that you can do. And if there's troubles along the way, let's figure out ways to resolve them.
So perhaps you would summarize it as like, just go for it and then try to find a solution to the problem of inaccessibility to make it accessible.
Yeah, because I don't know if DCI has really addressed concerns or accessibility. You don't see a lot of us in the activity. To be quite frank, like I can name probably 5 that I've known of since I've been following the activity since 2004, 2005.
Right.
So, not sure, honestly.
So let's close this thing up, and then I just couldn't think of a better way to finish this episode up by kind of making an open forum for advice. What I mean by that is I wanted us to go around, and I'll do it as well for this one, and then share perhaps your 1 to 2 advice that you would give on this podcast on an open mic to anyone who is perhaps in high school marching band or college marching band and who have even gave the slightest thought into competitive marching corps such as DCI, like drum corps such as DCI, or have considered or expressed joining marching band in the first place. What would be your advice?
Keep doing band. So whether or not you're even just doing concert band or anything like that, marching band is my favorite. But just keep doing band. Keep playing your instrument. Join band in college if your college has a band. Like if you're a senior and you're going into a new college, join their band. It's a fantastic way to meet amazing people. And the biggest part about drum corps is that it is very expensive, but usually college bands aren't. And like I'm part of the UC marching band, and honestly, the sound, you still get a very band experience either way, but the musical experience is very different, obviously. So it's really just find out what you like and then just do that. But keep playing your instrument. And then my second piece of advice was you are going to have to put twice as much effort into it to make it work, but find out what works for you. Talk to other people who have tried different things. Like for me, figuring out where I could dress to people on the field was really, really challenging. I've spent the last, probably 6 years trying to find a good, efficient way to read music. So if any of you guys have good tips, let me know, because I'm lazy. I want to be able to read sheet music. But, in the meantime, listening to like music XML files is good. But yeah, just you'll have to put in that extra work, but it's worth it.
I mean, I'll second Emily's point of just do band. You don't have to do drum corps to have that band experience. And at the end of the day, drum corps is still just band. And, people take it very seriously, as you should. But, like I say, it's just band, guys. Calm down. I mean, it's a great experience. And don't be afraid to fail. I've been cut from corps before. And, at first, that was a blow, but it was also a learning experience. You get to learn from some of the best staff in the world in terms of the marching arts, whether that be a weekend camp. And even if that was a drum corps you really wanted to march, you get cut, you still get that learning experience of like, hey, I know what an audition camp looks like. There'll be audition camps for other corps. If you need to march an open class corps, which usually features younger students, around 15 to 18 usually on average, go march an open class corps and get that drum corps experience, and then have that in your back pocket for when you want to potentially march a world-class corps, which the tour schedules is a little bit more rigorous, but the rehearsal schedule is still the same, whether you march world class or open class. It's still very rigorous or very hard on your body and on your mind, and just go out and do it. Don't be afraid to fail, because not to be the Debbie Downer, like it's okay to fail. Like I said, I've been cut from course. I've been rejected, but I eventually found my home, and I wouldn't change it for the world. What else? What another piece of advice? Another thing I would say, save up. If you are really serious about marching an activity, make sure that you can financially afford it. There are ways to fundraise to get your summer sponsored. Ask a veteran of the Corps if you do get offered a contract, like, hey, how do you afford this? And then I'm sure there's been plenty of individuals. I mean, when I was in Drum Corps, I fundraised all 6 years. Like, I would just ask for sponsorships from random individuals, whether it be a church group or school, neighbors, family, friends, just and like 6 years. And back then, and back in the day, Drum Corps was around $2,500 a summer to march. So I paid a a decent amount of money. But, I was able to, fundraise that. And I was lucky enough to continue on my drum corps journey to all the way to my age out. So, yeah, fundraising's fun. And joined the fundraising committee. I was big on the fundraising committee when I was on NAPS. So if you want to learn how to fundraise, just a pitch for the fundraising committee for NAPS.
I love
Join
that
it.
pride plug on our NAPS committees, that it still exists today, and it just takes different forms, but fundraising committee is awesome. I'm going to also chime in with a couple of my key advice, like these two brilliant-minded individuals have said. Continue band, really. Playing an instrument is, I feel like, to me, not only a skill, once you learn it, that you don't want to lose it because you're going to regret it, but it is also very therapeutic. While my college doesn't have any marching band of any sort, I'm still in Carson band. From time to time, I pop by our pep band because we have a very active and highly competitive basketball team. So we have a pep band for that. So I'll swing by, and then sometimes I'll just sit down and play. It's a very great feeling to be surrounded by other peers and to be in that ensemble group in any capacity. And even if you're aged out of college, or even if you're aged out of DCI, you could always find, I feel like, a community of people who have a community band. And it's a good skill to have, but it is also as challenging as it is rewarding, because it is, I know for me, it's like very therapeutic just to play music and to listen to music. I don't know about y'all, but like when you make music, do you feel like you could escape from a little bit of chaotic reality?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it depends whether or not band contributes to the chaotic reality or helps it. But I don't know. Either way, band is good. Yeah, band is pretty cool, I would say.
Yeah, go band.
Go band.
Thank you to our special guests, Dustin, Cather, and Emily Kiehl. This episode was created by Kinshuk, Tella, and Seyoon Choi out of the National Association of Blind Students Content Creation Committee, a division of the National Federation of the Blind. Visit us on the web at www.nabslink.org or find us on social media as the National Association of Blind Students. Thank you for listening, and let's go band!